My name is Wendy Harcourt and I work at the Institute for Social Studies of Erasmus University. Gillian Youngs very kindly invited me to join your symposium, but I won't be able to join. However, I have managed to put together this short response to some questions that Gillian kindly asked me to respond to in relation to digital policy, connectivity, creativity and rights. Most of my work has been focused on working with feminist organisations, particularly on the internet, and Gillian's been asking me to reflect with you some of the innovative ways in which women have used global contexts, particularly ICTs, to address inequalities. I immediately thought of the ways in which women have worked in the global arena. I immediately thought of the ways in which women are working in the global arena at the UN. That's been one of these resounding successes, particularly in relation to the 1990s meetings where women formed caucuses to really deal with inequalities on all sorts of levels, beginning with environment and ending with food security, and in between some of the most important conferences, particularly around Beijing, which was a Fourth World Conference on Women. These meetings were critical in getting gender equality onto the global policy arena and also onto national policy arenas, and I think we've seen in the last 20 years a huge change. ICTs were very critical for those connections amongst the women's groups as they formed caucuses, both locally and then regionally and then globally. It was a very exciting time. It was just when people started to realise the power of the internet, particularly women working in the global south. I would say that that really was one of the most exciting moments when people saw that being able to network together really could make a difference on the policy and advocacy scene. Right now I would say that those sorts of connections are continuing. They're now part of our lives. But I've also seen young people, particularly in Europe, starting to use internet in exciting ways to, well, probably all over the world, but living in Europe I've seen the ways in which just taking a phone and being able to connect with people cheaply, call meetings, do all sorts of protests, and young women have been taking a lead in that. A second question that Gillian asked me to look at was the ways in which women have been really sort of, if you like, triumphed using the internet. I wouldn't know if you want to say triumphed, but I would say that in relation to gender-based violence, women have certainly used the internet to make a huge difference in terms of people's recognition of it. When I was a student many years ago, the issue of gender-based violence was something that was very silenced. It's now something that's known about. There have been all sorts of protests organised through the internet to bring awareness and to bring about change. An example, well, there are many examples, but the most recent one of the Nigerian girls, which I think is all about gender-based violence around the world. It was women's organisations that got that onto the global agenda, right up to the White House now, calling on their release. Another example from the Arab Spring in Tahrir Square, when it was discovered that women were being harassed by both police and protesters. Huge global outcry led by women's organisations working on the internet, using their phones to get images around the world. I also could mention young women, or what they now call girl power, not only working with UN but also working with private businesses, particularly in e-signs and blogs, but also getting women on the other side of the camera and on the other side of the computer, so getting women involved in technologies and sciences. So a third area that Gillian asked me to give some comments about were the ways in which leadership, women's leadership, is important to making digital policy. I guess for me I would immediately have to say it's not just about women leadership, it's about the type of women leadership and the ways in which women can bring another sort of thinking about how to work together, how to connect. From my own experience, I learned from Nafi Sadiq. Her leadership was about listening, was about understanding the issues from the point of view of the women that she was trying to work on in relation to bringing sexual and reproductive rights and health to women all over the world. Coming from Pakistan, she showed a huge importance. The other person would be Mary Robinson from Ireland, who also has used her tremendous skills, both as soft-spoken women but very powerfully so, working on climate justice in this case, once she stopped being President of Ireland. I think the other important thing is that when you're talking about leadership, it's important to give power and leadership to young women as well. Being able to move across the generations is very key. So, lastly, what are my hopes for women? Well, I guess it's really my hopes for social justice in general. I think my main hope is that women can continue to work across differences of age, race, class, ethnicity, and in solidarity. And that's where digital technologies are very important, because they open up those sorts of spaces where women can learn and connect from each other. Obviously, the UN is one arena, but I think there are also a lot of smaller innovations in place which can now be connected through the internet, and in ways that I think also allow for entrepreneurial and new innovations that can balance women's reproductive and productive work. They work at home, they can work from home. I'm being filmed right now from my home, and where they can enjoy life and enjoy play as much as enjoy work. I think that's also what the digital age offers us. And it's also offering us possibilities to think about life beyond just the need for economic growth. So thank you. I'm sorry I'm not with you at the meeting, and I hope that you have a successful and enjoyable time together, and I look forward to hearing from Gillian of the outcome. Thank you.